right, so in this, the second part of this, we'll implement at least 4 buttons for content action that your app will need. Okay, so we'll then stage and commit those and show you how to submit same way we've done before. But I do want to say a word before we jump in about learning how to use the Chrome developer tools. Many of you have already been in Inspect, and it's really awesome, especially when you're trying to troubleshoot console messages that we'll talk about later from JavaScript. But while you're working on this CSS, it's so dead helpful. So if I just, once I hit inspect, then it'll take me into that part of the rendered DOM. So this is something you're really going to get used to knowing about depending on your level of HTML and CSS. But once that page is rendered, then the result of that is in memory called an object, and a document object model is what we follow to reach in and modify a page that has been rendered, which is what you're going to do today. Okay, so modifying the DOM is definitely a huge part of what JavaScript does, and so that's why I'm excited to bring this into the classwork part of our class, because you're getting the pure JavaScript parts with the free code camp and the weird parts. So it's, I think, a good combination. So just to complete this, if I come over here to, as an example, border, because these colors are not going to match what I had in my mind as far as what I wanted, and I could even drop them out totally, right? So, sorry, that's the border. So in this border color, so I could drop it out totally. Also the border itself, and place that up in there. That's one way I could do it. Be fairly, clean. I like clean, so I might lean that way. So what this shows you is a live preview of what that is, and if you like what you've changed, so the other thing is you can come in here and choose different colors, find the colors that you like, copy and paste them into your CSS file. And then if you don't like them, right, just refresh your page. So I know I cover Introduction to DevTools in 82, and I know Todd's talked about DevTools, Chrome DevTools in 85. So again, level up on DevTools. You'll save your life, I promise. Okay, so let's go ahead and now back over to our editor here. Let's go ahead and start implementing. This is where we left off, right? So we have our app.js. Okay. So here we have our app.js that we've created. A little lag from me doing a little coding in there. And now what we're going to do is in our document, right? So here we have, we're going to implement a button that does certain things. So first thing implementation I'm going to do is just to show the header content of the page. Right now where it says header, I'm going to have a button. So let's just go ahead and implement that. So I'm going to do button. And within the button, I'm going to have an on list like you did for last week, on click equal to, now I'm going to have a function. So show header. Okay. Really important here. I haven't written this function yet, but I'm going to go ahead and make sure you invoke it. And you will hear these words coming up. I invoke the function. Okay. Don't do that. I actually did that a minute ago and it cost me 10 minutes. So, all right. So the other thing I'm going to do here is, here's my button, right? It's up in the header. And now what I need to do is actually go into here and now do my header function. I'm going to do my function, right? Show header. Right, and in here, now what I will do is set up some variables. Now you could pull some variables from work we've done in the past, or you can set up some new. For my case, what I've decided to do is do var app title, because I'm going to show that up in the heading. Again, this is just stuff that we're learning to do, use the language along the way to doing more higher end real world stuff. But this would be the name of my app. So carbon footprint is what I spent way too much time trying to figure out how to name. Okay, so app title. So var, again here using camel case, app dev. So this would be the developer's name, right? Cool. So why I'm setting this up now is I'm actually going to create a new variable called head content. So this is content. This is a variable that's going to hold the content that I'm going to place into it in a bit. But now I'm going to build up that variable with a combination of string and variable content, something you've covered that's been covered in free code camp this week. Okay, so first I'm going to say welcome, if I can spell, welcome to, and then this would be the app name. Okay, now there's a reason that space is there, you'll see in a minute. And then I'll put app title. Okay, and then another plus. So what you're doing here is you're concatenating, right? So in this case the plus is not doing an addition, it's doing concatenation. You'll learn more about that definitely, and you've already seen some of it. So now I'm going to add another string. I'm going to call it welcome to the app, and I'll say created by, and then this would be the app developer, right? So this would be the app dev. And then that would, I could definitely put more here, and I'm going to want you to do more, but I'm doing for purposes of shortness of video here. So make sure, and then that would be the end, right? So now I've combined some variable content, some content that I know, with some content that probably won't change. But again, we'll talk about where this comes from and how you grab it and create it at other times. So now that I have that together, I'm going to create another variable. I'm going to call it EL for element. I could also call it node. That's a very common thing to do, but I'm going to call it element. Okay, so it's going to be equal to. So now I'm going to do document dot, and this is where I could start using my nice smart type, but I'm going to say get, and when I do that, I'm just going to bring it up, get element. And by the way, couldn't be more important here to make sure your upper and lower cases are correct because if you get it wrong, it won't work. By ID. Now, by the way, very important, it could be elements as well. So, let's just zoom in while we're doing this, right? So you can see this. Now I'm going to say in this variable called EL, I want you to go out, look at the document object, the DOM, get elements by, query look at that, and say by ID. Actually element by ID. I said it and then I did it. Isn't that funny? And now we need to tell it what. Okay, so what it's going to look for here is a CSS ID for us to put that in. So now we can either name it or create it, doesn't matter which way we do it. So I'm going to call it H content. All right, so that's the ID that I need. So what it's going to do is store this. It's going to look at the document. It's going to find H content. So let's actually go create it now. So up in here, and I could put it before or after. I do a div, and in this case I'm going to do pound just to use Emmet to let it do it for me, H content. And when I do that, it creates the div and it puts the ID of H content. Okay. So what I've now I'm partially set up here to once I've created my variables, I've created my content. Now I'm querying the DOM to figure out what is in place in this variable, the results of looking at querying the DOM. Okay, so now what do I need to do? So now what I want to do is I actually want to come down here and I'm going to say EL for that variable, that now location that it's looking at. I want to say its inner HTML is going to be equal to, so it's looking at there's in that HTML right now there's nothing, right? So again, remember, there's nothing in here, but in the inner HTML within here, right? So what we would do in here is we're going to say what you're going to put in there is going to be head content. Yep, that's what we're going to do. So let's actually look at it, let's see if I've got everything hooked up. I think I do, so let's just try it, right? So when I refresh, I should now have a button. The button has no content. Let's go do that real quick, right? So I'm going to say show header content. All right, so let's actually do that. Cool. So when I click here, awesome, right? That's so fun. Oh, and look, what did I forget, right? That's what I was saying before, those spaces are so important. So let's go back here. and it right here, right there. Nice. Let's see if that looks better. Cool, right? So that's what you're going to do 4 times and think about, right? And when I implement this, I'll actually show you one other thing that I'm going to do as well. And then I am on the going to be for the next time also look at some buttons because I found there's the talk about your time dumps, but I found a really nice button I wanted to implement here. That's really fun. But the last thing I'm going to do, because I think it's just cleaner in what we're trying to accomplish, is I'm actually going to do one other thing. I'm going to say document, and this actually builds on something else you've learned called the addition assignment operator. So I'm going to say get elements by, oh, again, please use smart typing, right? So I'm going to do now, same thing, get element by ID. Now, what am I going to do? I'll show you what I'm going to do here. Okay. Now we need to also tell it another ID. So what you might be wondering is, Rio, what are you setting up to do? So why don't I show you and then we'll come back and finish it. So what I want is I want this button to go away. Is once it's clicked on, I want it to like real world kind of stuff, right? I want it to go away. But in order to do that, I have to add a class to it that makes it hidden. So the first thing I'm going to set up to do is I'm going to do a ID equals, right? And then I'm going to give it an ID here so that I can target it in my get elements by ID. I'm going to say H button. Okay, so for header button. Right, so now going into my app. Oh, that I created it. My bad. It seems like I missed something here. Let me make sure. Yeah, I did. I think you can use single quotes on those too. All right, but editor didn't. Maybe not. Okay, so in here, so now get elements by ID. So I'm looking at, let me zoom in just a little bit, right? So we're going to say, what was the name of that? We called it H button. So the header button, right? So this though is differently. All we're asking this is we're actually setting this up to say dot class name. And now I'm going to do a plus equals, right? So this actually is the assignment, adding assignment. And what I really want to do, and this is what it's going to do, it's going to end up adding a class name into that div that's going to hide it. And I'm going to set that up in a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and name it not visible. Now, there is a really good reason I put the space here, because whenever you have two classes on one element, one div in this case, you have to have a space between them. Okay? All right, so now we got to go do a couple of things. So first, now that we've done that, in our CSS, and I'll do it at the bottom, I'm going to put in a class called, so I can use it multiple times, not visible, right? And then in here, this class, very easy, is just going to be display none. Cool. All right, so when this runs, after it populates, after it updates the DOM with our variable, then it's going to look for, in this case, find that ID of H button and the class name, and then what it's going to do is add to that the plus equals this new class name that I've defined. Okay, so let's actually see if it runs. It's always an exciting time to see if it runs. Okay, so boom. Oh, look at that. That's awesome. Simple but awesome, and really helps clarify our next stage of app development, right? So play with this, right? So part of this work too is also figuring out, you can do this, and I'm going to have you do this, is you can write. Now, by the way, it's not best practice, but this is the beginning. Because we're in a beginning stage, we have to do some of this. So as an example, you can put HTML within your concatenated variable that you're outputting. So if I wanted to put a new line in there, right, that could do it this way, because I didn't want a new paragraph, I just wanted a new line, right? So I want you to know how to do this as well. So when I do that, cool. I get a new line in there. And also we're going to style this, and you could put styles in here. There's just a lot more you can do. So what you will need to do, now that I've shown you this, is you will need to implement, right, at least four. So I'm going to do one now for login. So when you see my example, you will actually see one more for login. Okay, but just to complete here, we'll go ahead, right? So let's see, this is the get status, right? So let's see, I got a couple of new files, I got a couple of folders, my whole new folders directory structure, right? Get add star everything in there, get commit dash m. I'm going to say new repo file structure and classwork for day 7. Right? Now in this case, well, let's just go ahead and do it. Yeah, lot it had to do there, right? So then git push. Awesome. Awesome. So then when you see, because you all can see this, let's see if I have it out there. I know I do. Let's do the shared with everyone. You should see now implemented of our new structure and the thing that we just did, which was my app, right? So just give me a link into here for this, and it's a great start. I hope you enjoy this. We're going to continue working on this in our classwork, and then building upon some of the things you're learning within Free Code Camp and JavaScript, the weird parts. Have a good one.